Greetings and salutations, friends. My name is, of course, Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Caesar, or Charles Anime Episode Summary and Review. And today we'll be covering One Punch Man, Episode 5, Season 2. I just wanted to say right off the bat that I've been pretty critical of this season so far, okay? But I want to say that there is some positive to be had out of this situation. And that positive is that One Punch Man is being shown on TV somewhere. And I say TV rather generally because it's all on the internet, really, that you are able to see it. But having more One Punch Man to see is a plus in my book because the source material is so good. The story and the comedy and drama from the original comic and the artistry from the manga are at least somewhat displayed, even if they're represented badly in the anime. I would rather see a poor version of One Punch Man than no version at all, because I am an anime man, I'm an anime boy, I'm an anime gentleman, and I would rather watch this than actually go and read the manga, despite the fact that the manga is usually always better. I can just get engaged with the visuals and the sound a whole lot better than I can just reading the mangas. So yeah, it's a good thing that this exists because people like me can still enjoy the world of One Punch Man while still seeing the negatives. I love the world of One Punch Man. I love Saitama. I love the characters. So, I'm enjoying myself going through these reviews, these episodic reviews of One Punch Man, despite the fact that it is worse in almost every way. From One Punch Man Season 1. So let's get into Episode 5, shall we? Let's dive right in here. This episode is probably the weakest out of all the episodes in Season 2. Even worse than Episode 1 and 2, which were pretty darn bad. But the main thing that was bad about those was the differences between this season and last season. The problems with this episode are specific to this episode, as far as I can tell, and the way that the story is being constructed and is being expressed in the anime is terrible. The editing, in particular, is the worst that I've ever seen in One Punch Man, and the shot composition, the artwork, the number of frames of animation are really low still. There's still a level of movement that can be appreciated in the animation, okay? Episode 1 and Episode 2 were, almost static, right? Very little, no Sakuga in the first, 2 or 3 episodes. Episode 3 had a little bit of faster motion. Garo was being shown, whenever he fought anything, there was a little bit of faster animation. Episode 4 had a lot more, with Metal Bat fighting different villains, which was really fun to see. There was actually some good animation in there, good artwork, showing and expressing motion in a way that was exciting. In this episode, it kind of plateaus and starts to dip a little bit again. So what actually happens in Episode 5? Well, it starts off with Metal Bat being AWOL from the fight with Sentichoro, the dragon that's been fighting all the heroes and destroying the city. So all of these heroes are coming to fight him in Metal Bat's stead. And the first one to come is Metal Knight. We've seen him represented in the opening shots from the intro. And it looks like he's kind of a really important part of a team along with Saitama and Fubuki, but he's kind of lame in this fight. We don't see him actually being effective at anything. It's just oh, he has a cool design. He's a giant robot that has tons of rockets and things that he shoots and lasers. But he's completely ineffective against Sentichoro. And that same annoying animation style of having that matte texture of gun barrel steel. It's not good. It's a bad graphic to use when so few other things have that in this show. And it looks like it's a 3D effect or a CG effect, and it completely clashes with everything else, as I've said before. And that is continuing They're not going to change that anytime soon. So Metal Knight is introduced, and it's kind of funny because we get Metal Bat and Metal Knight, two heroes introduced in 2 episodes right back to back with metal in the title. And I'm sure there are other metal heroes as well, kind of like there are tank top heroes, and a lot of tank top heroes get defeated by Garo in this episode. And there are so many villains, there are so many heroes that are introduced just willy-nilly. You cannot pay attention to all of them, and you cannot care about any of them because there are so many of them introduced in such a short time. There are over 25, I counted. I lost count after a while, and I was like, forget it, it's not important. Over 25 heroes introduced. A bunch of them with names, a lot of them without names, and then there are over 35 villains. This is a 24-minute episode. How can I pay attention when so many heroes are being flung in my face? You can't. And that's the thing, you can't care about any of them because this is the first time we've seen any of them. And a lot of them are being defeated by the onslaught of waves of armies, literal armies of villains coming upon the city and attacking heroes because they figured out that when you kill a hero or defeat a hero, your ranking, your villain ranking goes up, or monster ranking. So a lot of these characters, these villains, are looking to increase their ranking by being seen to have defeated a hero in public, and they all want to defeat S-rank heroes, so they're all going after them, as well as Garo, the hero killer, or hero hunter. So they've all kind of been influenced, apparently, by Garo. Also, an interesting thing about this episode is there are certain villains that are, one of them I can only describe as being Big Bird. He looks exactly like Big Bird, just a more colorful version, comes and meets with Garo at one point in the episode and is trying to recruit him to a specific faction of evil villains. And of course, Garo is his own man. He's his self-made, independent monster man. And so he just, tells him to go on his way or else he'll kill him. And the bird flies off, and his retinue, his team, also leave. He orders them all to leave because apparently that was their entire point in coming, was to, of course, kill as many heroes as possible, but also to specifically recruit Garo to their faction, which mirrors Fubuki in episode 2 trying to get Saitama on her side. And while it didn't work for Saitama, it didn't work for Garo. So there's definite mirroring happening, and it's interesting that you see so much of Garo in this season. We've seen more of Garo than we have of Saitama, which is kind of backwards. He is the antagonist after all, but they're going with a kind of antagonist equals side protagonist angle, which, while interesting, it would be good if it weren't for the fact that we're not seeing as much of Saitama. Why are we watching One Punch Man if we cannot see One Punch Man? He's just off doing his own thing. And we've gotten reasons as to why he's doing that. Saitama is off doing the tournament because he wants to defeat Garo, or at least fight him in a equal fight, because that's what Saitama is always about. And so he goes to this tournament where Garo once fought, so that he can learn martial arts, or at least learn how to fight martial artists, and wants to maybe meet Garo again and fight him there. And of course, that's great. Follow that. Follow him first. Having us cut back and forth between Saitama, the heroes, Garo, is really fracturing your audience's focus. And it's not like you cannot do that, but doing that so many times in one episode is just over the top. It is beyond the pale. I'm reading War and Peace right now, and this has to do with the way that it cuts back and forth between different groups. There are like 5 different groups, all kind of related via family members and wives back in the Napoleonic Wars. And, you just have to learn to remember who these people are. And the thing is, every time it switches in War and Peace between one group of people and another, they keep focus on that group of people for a pretty long time, at least a couple of chapters, which in that book is like 10 to 20 pages. which is a long time. In One Punch Man, that's probably like 1 or 2 episodes. So if we were to cut back and forth between Saitama and the city, and the villains, and the heroes, why not just keep on Saitama for an episode, and then backtrack and see what was happening during Saitama's fight? Instead, we get this really shoddily edited episode in which we're getting random heroes introduced, cutting to Saitama in his tournament arc, cutting back to villains killing heroes, and then cutting back to the tournament arc, then cutting to Garo fighting with Metal Bat, and it goes back and forth throughout the entire rest of the episode. I don't really have that much more to say about this episode because that's really all that happens. Nothing happens, really, in the tournament. We get even more characters introduced in the tournament sections, where Saitama is seeing all of the heroes that are fighting in the martial arts tournament. And it's basically a typical shonen tournament arc that's happening at the same time as all of this other crazy stuff is going on in the city that's way more important. But for some reason, we're supposed to care about what's happening in the tournament and who's winning and who's losing, while people are getting massacred in the city. It doesn't make sense. It's really poorly done, and yeah, that's really all I have to say in the matter. I could talk about it for a long, long time, but there's just so much fracturing of attention. I mean, Saitama gets bullied a little bit by one of the other heroes, which is typical shonen tournament stuff. He kind of creates a little friendship with Sourface, the other Silver Fang fighter that was taught by Silver Fang. Silver Fang himself shows up in this episode, strangely enough, along with all the other arcs. Silver Fang and his brother, I'm thinking, his older brother, Bomb, are fighting villains and trying to find Garo, trying to hunt him down, and they're not finding anyone. So it just cuts to them, shows them like on a rooftop looking for Garo, and then they see a random villain attacking people, and Silver Fang just kills him, destroys this villain completely. And it's like a 5-second scene, and it cuts away, and we don't see them again in this episode. So it's like, why did we even see that? It's just kind of like a reminder that that is happening at the same time. And it's like, will these plot threads ever come together in a way that makes sense? In the last episode, we were getting kind of a build-up to Saitama and Garo fighting, or in the last previous episodes. In episode 3, at the end, we get Saitama and Garo accidentally meeting, and One Punch Man just defeats him immediately. And so all of that tension was taken away, and now they're going in totally different directions. It's not an interesting segue into this next area, this next arc. We have no reason to be invested in what's going on in the tournament because Saitama is going in the wrong direction. And how can he possibly get involved with Garo again or any of the other villains if he's in this tournament? Well, he can't. And that's the purpose behind this tournament arc, is to separate Saitama, the most overpowered hero in the universe, from the dangers in the city. Because if he were there, he would just knock out all of the villains. There would be no threat. But, of course, since he's over there, then all of these villains can fight these heroes and win. And we can feel some kind of threat happening. So it's a really kind of underhanded tactic to cause tension when there really is none. We know that Saitama is going to fight these guys eventually and win. So what's the point of having him over there? The more interesting way to use Saitama in this is maybe to be fighting Garo and seeing all of these villains around him that he's not able to fight because Garo is so powerful that he can have a satisfying duel. But the problem is that the duel may be satisfying for One Punch Man because he's not able to one punch him. Rather, he is taken aback because he cannot save people around him. You know, have this protracted battle that goes on for multiple episodes even. Like, in Dragon Ball, people always talk about how horrible it is that these fights take multiple episodes, but sometimes there's a reason for that, and it's happening in real time. It's just a long battle. If they did something like that in One Punch Man, I would be fine with it. And it would be a whole lot more interesting than what is happening now. So, we see Fubuki starting to fight the other villains. And King is probably going to get involved somehow and have to fight back himself, even though he has 0 powers, which could be interesting. And where's Genos and in all of this? Well, he is with Saitama in the tournament, just watching. So it's a really bad episode, everyone. I can't say otherwise. And I have no idea how they're going to pull this all together in a way that is satisfying, and I don't think you can, really. The next episode will tell us how. We'll see how they do. But, yeah, so those are my thoughts on episode 5. It was really, like, I was shaking my head the entire time, taking notes the entire time, and most of the notes are useless, because what it comes down to is there are tons of cuts in between characters. Metal Bat gets defeated by Garo, and I don't care. He was introduced last episode randomly, and he's taken out of the fight in this episode randomly by Garo, and it's the same type of thing. Garo fights him, and the animation is okay, but it's nothing spectacular. Garo defeats him after kind of a longer fight than Garo was expecting, because this guy has a lot of spunk, a lot of spirit, and his ability allows him to push through pain, and the more he gets hit, the more Metal Bat gets injured, the more empowered he is to fight. But of course, Garo basically just causes him to faint, and the sister saves him from being killed, and they leave. And, you know, Garo is, of course, very compassionate towards children, so he doesn't kill Metal Bat's little sister, and they part ways. The bird talks to Garo. Garo keeps looking for other heroes to fight. Silverfang kills a guy. Saitama gets in a fight with another hero in the hallways of the tournament. He talks to Sourface. He's trying to keep his facade of who I was calling Chunchunmaru, but it's Charanko is what his name is, that he is impersonating to get into the tournament. And now he's going to have to fight that very guy in the next episode. But the problem is, that's another problem, he's shown to have to fight his own bully in this next episode. But it cuts off right when the fight is meant to start, and the end credits start rolling. And most people would turn off the episode at this point, thinking, oh, he's going to fight him in the next episode. Well, psych, you're wrong, because at the post-credits ending, Saitama just defeats him humiliatingly, and it's a little comedic, and that's it for that guy. So we're not going to see him fight him anymore. It's just a really poorly handled episode. Everything has been poorly handled that was set up in previous episodes. So I have no idea how they can bring this all together. But thanks for watching. See you next time at episode 6 of One Punch Man Season 2. All right, until then, farewell.